Thank you very much, Oyemi Ajayi, for that background. With us in the studios to discuss the issue. Let's welcome the chairman of the Federal CARES Technical Committee, that's FCTC, and Director Economic Growth in the Federal Ministry of Budget and National Planning, Aso Vakboraye. Aso Vakboraye, a pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
Also here with us in the studios is the National Coordinator of NG CARES, Dr. Abdul Karim Obaje. Dr. Obaje, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, colleagues, and I'm happy to be here.
Also joining us in the studio is Aisha Abdullahi, NG CARES Team Lead, Bank of Industry. You're welcome to Good Morning.
Good morning, and thank you for...
It's a pleasure to have you join us. And also in the studio for the discussion is financial analyst Ni Akisiju. Welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure as always. Thank you very much.
All right. Once again, we welcome all our guests. Let's begin by drilling further into the whole idea behind the NG CARES. What is NG CARES all about, and why did we need NG CARES at this time? Let's get a response from the National Coordinator of NG CARES, Dr. Obaje.
Thank you very much. The Nigerian COVID-19 Action Recovery and Economic Stimulus Program, NG CARES program, is an initiative for the federal government of Nigeria, but principally supporting all the 36 states of the Federation and FCT to mitigate the negative impact that has been inflicted on the country on the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic as early as February, March 2020. And this has been in the works now since July, thereabout 2020, to design the program valued at $750 million US within the framework of the Economic Sustainability Plan, which was also put together at about the same time by the federal government of Nigeria. So that is NG CARES. I think as we continue, we'll delve more into it.
Okay, thank you. Let's now join the Chairman, Federal CARES Technical Committee, FCT, and Director Economic Growth, Federal Ministry of Budget and National Planning, Mr. Aso. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. We've seen a lot of, stimulus package being dished out by the government, to target vulnerable and poor people in Nigeria who have been hit hard by COVID-19. Most of these stimulus have how beneficiaries can access and how they can get the loans. So in this instance, we're looking at vulnerables and poor, but do we also have others who are part of beneficiaries for the NG CARES program?
Yes, the advantage the program has brought to the country is that it came at a time when the country was being tagged the poverty capital of the world or something. So taking advantage of this program to kick out poverty out of Nigeria. So it's not just only those that were affected by the COVID pandemic, but others who had one economic issue or the other as a result of the circumstances about that time, economic circumstances about that time, or taking advantage of it to kick poverty out of the country. So it's a good start for everybody. We can say it's a good morning in the area of kicking poverty out of Nigeria.
And looking at the target of 100 million Nigerians getting out of poverty soon.
Yes, when Mr. President gave that pronouncement, it was not just going to be instant, it's going to be in batches. So we're going to act in batches in this respect too. But because of the pain, this emergency program, because this NG CARES program is an emergency program that had to be handled within a very short period of 2 years, 24 months. We just have to deliver.
Okay. Back to Dr. Obaje, who is the National Coordinator. Tell us some more about the nature of this facility, $750 million from the World Bank. Is it a grant or is it a loan? Because in our bulletin, we did say that, oh, this is money that the federal government has sourced from the World Bank for on-lending to the states. Are the states borrowing from the federal government through this, or what?
Yes, the facility is a credit from the World Bank. Is concessional on concessionary term. It's a very, very reduced term, not commercial lending as it is, and it's under the IDA.
International Development Assistance.
Yes, it's a lending framework of the World Bank. So it's $750 million US dollars, and as I mentioned, it's concessional. Interest rate of 0.5%, moratorium of 10 years. You pay over a period of 35 years. So it's credit quite all right, but it is actually very, very cheap credit to the federal government of Nigeria. And these resources is on lent to all the 36 states and FCT. And it will be recovered on even more concessional terms to the states, because I am aware that the federal government has also relaxed a little bit some of those terms on which this facility will be on lent to the states. So it's a very good development for the country at this point in time, where most of the states are actually facing some financial crisis or the other. So this funding is coming handy to enable them to meet their socioeconomic obligations to their citizens in the state. So the governors are quite excited, the beneficiaries are quite excited that this facility is coming.
Okay, Mr. Obaje, $750 million funding for this program earmarked by the federal government. Is the money on ground, or how will it be funded? And can you tell me what is the difference between this particular program with other stimulus packages we have?
Yes, the resources is available, but it is going to be released in phases, in parts. As we speak, the first part of the money, or about $120 million out of the $750 million, is already with us in Nigeria, with the Central Bank of Nigeria. And how is it different from the other interventions, similar interventions? All the beneficiaries of this facility at the state level and at the FCT is going to be grant to them, okay? They are going to be getting this as support, as grant to enhance their livelihoods. And it is important to mention too that all the delivery platforms at the state level have been institutions, MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies of government that have been existing for quite some time and have accumulated a lot of implementation experience over the years. For example, you take FADAMA, which has been on ground now for close to 2 decades. CSDAs, the Community and Social Development Agencies, have been on ground for, about 12 years or so. So also the JIP that just started have accumulated a lot of experience in terms of human capacity, and then systems of working, and also conversance with World Bank procedures. So it is a project that we are program that we are very optimistic that within a period of 2 years, with the kind of the volume of experience that we have garnered over time, we should be able to disburse these resources if we get a concomitant cooperation from our state government, because there are some things that they are supposed to do to make sure that the implementation is seamless, and these resources get to those who they are intended they are intended for.
Thank you, Dr. Obaje. I want to bring in Niyi Akinseju, who is a regular financial and economic analyst. Niyi, could you attempt to contextualize the NG Cares against the backdrop of the explanations provided by Dr. Obaje and what, in fact, you do know about all of this? We're talking about, first of all, just understanding the tenor of this facility. I mean, the straight line would appear that the federal government is borrowing from the World Bank at concessional interest rates and passing the money on to the state governments, who are then required to give these monies to beneficiaries as grants. So we're just borrowing to give to people?
In context too, don't also forget that the NG Cares, for me, it's actually a curve within the economic sustainability program. Right from the launch of the economic sustainability program, we can see the breakdown of the 2.3 trillion naira that was to be made available, for the implementation of the ESP. To my mind, from that big breakdown, the federal government was to provide a sum of 500 billion naira. The CBN was to provide a sum of 1.1 trillion naira, and from credit sources, 330-something billion naira was to be provided, and another 300-something billion naira from other sources. So I think this is actually an integral part of the original sources of revenue or of fund to be disbursed for this program. So I think it is a continuation, actually, an extension of the ESP, as it were. For me, it's important, even if we have to secure funding, especially if it is at concessional rates, and I think the moratorium is very impressive enough, and the payback tenor is also impressive at 35 years and 10 years moratorium. The important thing is that we have a poverty endemic challenge in Nigeria, and whatever the federal government can do to ameliorate or mitigate these challenges would be appreciated. Don't forget that the truth is that up to now, Nigeria still counts many poor people, perhaps the largest number of poor people in the world, anywhere in the world. Now, that does not suggest that the government have not been doing anything. I have been following particularly the issue of poverty and the poverty population in Nigeria. And it's impressive to know that if in 2012 we had 112 million Nigerians living under $1 then, under $1, which was the poverty line in 2012. Now, by 2015, that poverty line had moved up to 1.90 cents, $1.90. And the number by now had also decreased to about 83. In fact, by 2017, it had decreased to 83 million Nigerians living under the poverty line. But for me, what is important is that with the coming of COVID-19, the World Bank projected that more than 9 million Nigerians will likely be taken into the poverty, under the poverty line, because of the economic slowdown of that period. But it was the application of the policy of the ESP, that had been able to contain that. So rather than have 9 million more Nigerians get under the poverty line, I think the policy, as it were, had been able to contain that, and I think one should be appreciative of policies that particularly targeted the small and medium enterprises, and of course targeted the smallholders farmers. And that is what this extension is still attending to, because to the mind of the average Nigerian, it would seem as if the tenure of the ESP had expired. And of course, it had expired. We now have the National Development Plan, which had been breached, which was breached by the ESP, as it were. But now there's a new momentum that is provided by NG Cares. So it also means that those that were not impacted, in the last so many months, will now have the opportunity to also benefit from the NG Cares. I know, in fact, the focus we have now is that about 1.1 million jobs were saved through particularly the payroll support track of the Survivor Fund of the ESP. And about another 1 million jobs were created through this same, through the intervention of the ESP. So going forward, I am looking forward to a situation where this would not only just impact, the poor, it will also create liquidity as expected in the economy.
Okay, Mr. Nee, I'm still going to stay with you. And most of this, the NG Cares is sort of targeted at states and seeing how the poor and vulnerable there will be lifted up after losing so much to COVID-19. But one question I would love to ask you is, the last time we were talking about the National Development Plan here, and we talked about how states, don't reach out to the most vulnerable people. Most of them are not aware of some of these interventions. Are you satisfied with the way they've sort of handled previous interventions?
Well, there is a growing experience track, with the what I call, especially the cash transfer program. I know that the focus personnel in the states are directly responsible, for the implementation of the cash transfer at the state level. So I think experience had been garnered over the years since 2017. So I will not be surprised if this also work out. The cash transfer program, to my mind, had been very, very successful. And it had been, the state personnel had been the major arrowhead. So that enough experience had been gathered at that level. But my only challenge really is that there should have been a consideration of, well, is it equity or inequality here? The truth of the matter is that sharing equally across states, funding and support like this may not be equitable, because the truth is that the share of poverty across states is not uniform. You have some states that are more poverty endemic than the others. Latest reports is showing that some states have as high as a particular state have as high as $24,000 GDP per capita, while some states have as low as $2,000 per capita GDP per capita. So it tells you the level of inequality across income inequalities across the states. So it would mean that when you have a kind of support or intervention like this should also be considered, so that we can look at it as a whole. The normal thing for us is to try and be equal-minded, equity-minded. But again, there's a need to also look at that population spread and see how we can move more people, especially those who are in those states that are disadvantaged as of now.
All right, Nii, thank you very much there for the comments that you have made. Of course, we will interrogate further aspects relating to the criteria for participation and disbursement of the facility. Let's bring in Aisha Abdullahi, who is the NG Cares team lead at the Bank of Industry. One would presume that Bank of Industry will be focusing on MSMEs in terms of getting the beneficiaries for this. Have you started? And if you haven't started, how do you intend to begin, and whom are you targeting?
So the bank, our role on this NG Cares program is to provide technical support to the states with regards to implementation. We are also providing execution support to some of the states that are targeting MSMEs as well. With regards to technical support, there's a lot of capacity building that has been happening. The Bank of Industry since 2016 has disbursed over 100 billion in terms of interventions to MSMEs across all 36 states plus the FCT. So it is that expertise that we're passing on to the states to enable them deliver the NG Cares program effectively. Another thing that we're also doing is that we have a platform that we've built over the years that enables us target, capture and disburse funds to MSMEs wherever they are. We're using that platform as well across some of the states to deliver the intervention to the beneficiaries. We've started. We have disbursed about 2,000. We did a pilot test, even though the program hadn't launched yet. We have disbursed about 2,600 grants to beneficiaries in Delta states. Different MSMEs were able to apply, were able to vet them, verify them, and were able to give them the grants. Delta states use their own funds, while they're waiting for the NG Cares funds to come in. So that was a very commendable effort on the part of Delta State to test the process before the program had even started. So to answer your question, yes, we've started. And, you know, we're on ground to provide support to the states, not just for execution, but as well as capacity building so that they're able to execute these programs properly on their own.
So what is the loan ceiling for beneficiaries in the NG Cares?
So NG Cares is not a loan, it's a grant to the beneficiaries. We all know that with COVID, the MSMEs, small and medium enterprises that were targeting really suffered from the lockdown. For the 3 months that there was a lockdown, none of them were able to do anything. So we don't want to belabor them by increasing their debt burden. So what we're giving them is grants. The grants vary depending on the states. We spoke to the financial analyst that talked about how poverty varies across states. For some of the states, they're giving lower amounts of about 50,000. For some of the other states that are a bit more sophisticated, they're giving amounts of up to 500,000 or 1 million naira. So it depends on the states and the type of beneficiaries that they're looking at.
Could you speak some more about the pilot program in Delta, where the MSMEs have been identified and given a lead, as it were, before the state government receives its own tranche from the facility? What kind of MSMEs were these, and what was the Bank of Industry monitoring experience from what went on?
Well, the MSMEs varied. Like I mentioned earlier, the states have different sectors that they are targeting depending on the type of businesses that they want to benefit. So you had small businesses like the Mama Puts with her corner restaurants in the market. You had traders, you had people with more sophisticated businesses like maybe a bigger restaurant, or people that sell airtime, all sorts of people. You had traders, you had artisans, you had all sorts of people that had benefited. What the Delta State government did was to also ensure that there was equitable distribution across all the local government areas. So I think there were 11 local government areas in Delta State. All of them participated in the program. They walked through their MDAs that were responsible for working with these small and medium businesses that had worked with them for a while and that knew their businesses and were able to confirm that they were genuine businesses. They got them to apply, and we did some sort of verification to confirm that they were who they said they were, and they were able to disburse to them. The experience was interesting in the sense that, you know, this is almost the first time that the states are working with a program of this nature. So there was a lot of capacity building that went on for the delivery units. So the staff of the delivery unit went through a lot of training to be able to identify the right people. World Bank holds us accountable for every single naira that goes to the hands of these beneficiaries. So you have to be able to demonstrate that Aisha that collected the money is Aisha, is who she says she is. So there was an integration with NIPS to confirm BVN belongs to the applicant, to confirm that the account belongs to the account holder. So all the concerns from, you know, that we normally have for these interventions were addressed during the course of that implementation with Delta State. We also had a lot of community engagement as well, so that people were able to address their grievances. You had people that came to complain and said they had applied, but, you know, people chose who they know and all that, and you're able to demonstrate to them that this was what, you know, helped them qualify. So all in all, it was an interesting experience. It was also good because we were able to do a pilot before the program started and address all the issues before you now start to scale up across the country.
Okay, a pilot for those who already have businesses on ground.
Yes.
What about startup businesses?
Well, startups are not the focus for these grants, because remember that the chairman said we're trying to address the effects of COVID. So we're looking at businesses that have suffered because of the pandemic from March, because of the lockdown as well as the pandemic. That's what we're looking at. So startups are not really the focus for this intervention, but I'm sure there are other government interventions that will also address the issues with startups. But startups are not the focus for this intervention at the moment. Yes.
Right. I'm wondering, Dr. Abdulkarim Obaje, the issue relating to the equitable distribution of the facility, $20 million per state, $15 million for the Federal Capital Territory, and $15 million for the federal government. How were these numbers arrived at, considering that the spatial distribution of adversity isn't uniform?
Yes, thank you. The amount of $20 million allocated is ex ante. It is nominal allocation. And since all the states, in principle, we appreciate the fact that there is a lot of diversity in poverty incidence or poverty across the state, but all the states have suffered to certain degrees under this COVID pandemic, which brought about lockdowns and all that. So it was thought wise to give a nominal allocation of $20 million ex ante. And as implementation progresses, because this money must be used, if it is not used at the end of 2 years, there is a penalty on uncommitted funds that the federal government of Nigeria has tied down that will be levied on us by the World Bank. So that will now trigger reallocation during midterm to see states that have been very, very responsive, states who are using the resources well, probably will get more money during reallocation. And then, I mean, that is it, to ensure that at the end of the day, after 2 years, the $750 million would have been completely used. It is, there are issues in terms of what needs to be put in place by the states to ensure that these resources are used. And we can talk about that as an outflow of the eligibility criteria, okay? One of which is the issue of fund release policy. There is a policy, there is a protocol on fund release that the federal government, with the technical support of the World Bank, has put in place, and all the states are supposed to adopt this fund release policy. So if a particular state fails to adhere to the tenets of the fund release policy, which states that as soon as resources come in, we ensure that these funds go only to the delivery platforms. And there's a time limit, minimum of 10 working days, 5 working days or so, and maximum of 10 working days, that these resources must go to this delivery platform and cannot go elsewhere. So if it is discovered that a particular state flaunts this provision of the fund release policy, of course, they will not be reimbursed, because the principle of the NG Cares program is performance for results, you know, and these are subject to verification through the independent verification agency. So there are a lot of issues in terms of implementation, okay? You talk about targeting. Are we targeting the right people that are supposed to benefit from this facility? If you are not targeting the right people, and as verified by the IVA, the Independent Verification Agency, then you are not going to be reimbursed. So the more states show diligence and commitment to following the tenets of implementation of this program, I mean, the more resources they can draw to their state. But ex ante, as I've mentioned, to be fair to all, for a start, this $20 million seem to be the cost that the federal government of Nigeria has told at this stage, and of course with the World Bank.
What is the monitoring policy being put in place to ensure that the targeted beneficiaries get the grant as at when due?
This program benefits from various levels of monitoring. At the federal level, we have the Federal Cares Steering Committee, we have the Federal Technical Committee, and of course we have the Federal Cares Support Units. Each of these structures at the federal have responsibility for monitoring. At the state level, we have the State Cares Steering Committee. We have the State Cares Coordination Unit. Again, both have responsibilities for monitoring. We also have monitoring, which is expected to be carried out by civil society organizations under what we call the third-party monitors. This is also very, very strong, and resources have been provided for it. And finally, and most importantly, is the Independent Verification Agency, because they are doing both monitoring and also verification of results that have been achieved by the states, you know, as declared through the State Cares Coordination Unit. And that's the basis for funding the state. So it's the quality of implementation on ground that will inform it. So the gamut of monitoring system is very, very robust. And of course, the World Bank also does their own implementation support visit to all the states to confirm that indeed the grants, the resources are being put to use the way they have been predetermined in the project documents.
Thank you, Dr. Obaje. Aso Vakboraye of the Federal Ministry of Budget and National Planning, Finance, Budget and National Planning. Why is the federal government also getting $15 million out of this? The FCT already has $15 million, and each of the states $20 million nominally. The federal government doesn't have citizens other than those that are in the FCT and then in the 36 states of the federation. What is the federal government doing with its own share of the money?
Yes. The coordination of this particular program, you know, is a noble program. It's very important, and is, let me call it a program that is needed at a time like this. So it needs proper coordination. And you know, the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, the planning arm is there. Issues of coordination of activities of all the MDAs, ministry, departments, and agencies of the country are part of the mandates, you know, of the ministry. So, and of course, you can't do things like that without the relevant resources to get things done. You know, even that amount, we can look at it at this month, but for 2 years, you know. For example, the national M&E of this country is domiciled in the ministry. So together, you know, this will help in making the things, the activities, you know, to flow in line with the expectation of the populace, the expectation of government, and of course the World Bank.
I was just wondering, from the experience that we've had with a series of interventions, what are your expectations with regard to NG Cares? I mean, we've had SIPs, that's the social investment programs, trader money, and so on and so forth, and teach and health, and then we are having this triggered by the challenges arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. Are you hopeful that this might make a dent on the poverty trap in the different parts of the country?
Yes, I agree with you. It will.
I'm not making a statement, I'm asking a question.
Yeah, it's not just making an event, it's going to have a concrete touch, because it will help in changing the narratives concerning the economy of this country, concerning the people of this country. Like I said earlier, we're going to leverage on this to kick out poverty out of this country, and to create jobs for people to do, to make life easier. You see the name, CARE, Nigeria Cares. We should be able to care for our people. Even we can scale it down to even the family, you know. And it is on this slide that in one of the criteria said, you know, the states were agreed, we are allowed to domesticate it. By rather calling it Nigerian Cares, they call it, for example, Ebonyi Cares, Ondo Cares, Edo Cares, you know, Delta Cares. You know, they own it and run with it, just to try at all possible ways to change the lifestyle of the people that are. It's good, we may say to some extent, COVID came and it had its own negative, you know, but it has given us this opportunity now to see how we go back into our shortfalls and roll away the things we are not supposed to have.
You know, Juma, what Mr. Vakboraye has said is interesting, and for those who are involved in the implementation of this, if states are required to domesticate NG Cares, and as Aisha indicated, look, Delta has done a pilot scheme, so it will be Delta Cares if they start to run. But how much information about NG Cares is out there in the public domain? for people to know. I'm not, if you ask me, for instance, I'm based here in the Federal Capital Territory, how much information is out there for the would-be beneficiaries to say, oh, FCT cares, so let me, keep my ears to the ground, or let me open my eyes wide. I will see billboards or see some other informational materials out there. And in fact, all these other states of the Federation, how much public information is out there, because time is running out. Abaji, if you like.
Well, thank you very much. Maybe let me give an answer to an earlier question you asked in why $50 million for the federal government. I have mentioned the issue of independent verification agency, engagement of third-party monitors, and my chairman has mentioned coordination at the federal. These resources at the federal is essentially for that. The IVA will get a substantial chunk of this $50 million because they have to be paid, and it is one IVA for the entire country, to standardize their operations. So, and then of course, the third-party monitors need to be paid. So the resources, and of course, a critical thing which my colleague Aisha has also mentioned is capacity building. Many of these states, though we appreciate the fact that they have very, very good capacity because over time they have been in this business, and we have insisted that only existing delivery platforms, MDAs, who have adequate experience in implementation should be used. We still need to build their capacity because there are elements of NGKs that are also new, okay? If so the resources at federal is not for grants to federal people in Abuja per se, but it is to support implementation. Pay for these services, organize capacity building for everybody, and then also peer learning is a very, very important component of this operation, which is anchored by the Nigerian Governors Forum Secretariat. There's going to be a lot of peer learning experience sharing among the states at the blast of the whistle. Of course, Delta State has done some things now, and then we are putting our eyes, and then very soon we'll start getting monitoring report from them. What is the best practices from one state, and how can the other state adopt it? So all this requires funding, and that's where essentially the $50 million allocation to the federal under the Federal Care Support Unit will be going. And in terms of publicity, yes, we are, let me say, a lot is going on at the state government level, taking the fact that many of these platforms have been existing and they are known. But we just declared the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has launched the program at the national, and this is to flag off intense sensitization and publicity. And I want to thank the NTA too for reaching out to us to appear and then to follow up on the launching that was done last week Thursday by the Vice President, and very, very commendable. So we want to call on the press. We are now in public domain. We want to call on the press, on the civil society organizations to reach out to us, and then to ask questions, and we'll continue to avail them information on the areas that they can support. And from next month, by February, because preparation is actually in top gear for actual NGKS advance payment to the state to commence. So in February, the state will start getting money, and those who haven't started in earnest, we know that many of the states have started doing something in preparation, will not start. And that is when most of our activities actually start from sensitization, targeting, and all that. And there's going to be a media component of all this. So from February, I'm sure the nation will be agog, will be having a lot of information in the media out there to let people know what we are doing, to enable the media to follow us and report as appropriate.
How are you going to make use of the traditional and local government platform? Because they are the people who have direct access to the vulnerable and poor.
Yes, the issue of targeting, as I mentioned before, actually essentially under Resort Area 1, is community-based. The DLIs, what we call the disbursement linked indicators under the Resort Area 1, are actually driven from the communities. So if you take the social transfer, which is for aged people, chronically ill, disadvantaged people, you know, in households, in poor communities, there's what they call the community-based targeting. This is a procedure that has been introduced, perfected under NASCO, the National Social Safety and Net Coordinating Office, which is currently under the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. And it is where the community themselves will identify who is poor. First of all, they determine what is the criteria for poverty. How do we determine who is poor in our community? As it is agreed, they will not, implement it on those who are in the community. They identify who are those poor communities. And these communities are mine. They are put together in a social register. Okay? So all the states of the federation have social register. Okay? And this social register is managed by officials of the state under the State Operation Coordinating Unit, which is under NASCO as it is. So you carry people along from the community. So nobody can benefit. Nobody can be part of the social register unless you are poor, are vulnerable, and you are living in the community in the state. And this register is open. Okay? It is verifiable. People can go to the state and knock on their doors and say, I want to see your social register.
Dr. Obaje,
yes, sir.
I hope implementers of the NG Cares, laudable as the program is, will not run into some challenge. Based on the explanation you are given in part, yes, we know that there's a social register. We discussed that on Good Morning Nigeria at the takeoff of the SIP. Mrs. Miriam Uwais was our guest, and several other government officials were in there. If 6 years ago a person was on your social register as a poor person, in 2022, and that person is still on your social register of poor persons, have you made a dent on the life of that person? And now you are coming to give another grant to that aspect. Niyi Akinseju, I would like you to respond to this. How do we move from this so that assuming, for instance, Kingsley, or let's use you and I as an example. You and I were on the social register 6 years ago. 2022, NG Cares is coming. Yes, every state has a register. We'll go again and line up and then be collecting this grant. Of course, you're not paying back. Would we be seen, would the program be seen to actually lifting us out of poverty and then getting the right metrics as to how many poor people are in the country and how many poor people we need to address and tackle and deal with in terms of the challenges that they are facing?
I align my thoughts with your concern, really, because a social register is supposed to be dynamic. It's not expected to be permanent. It's a temporary reference, for the population of the poor. The whole idea of engaging poverty is to see poverty as transition, and to that extent, it is expected that at every point in time, the numbers of the poor should always be monitored, evaluated for inflow and outflow, So by now, we should be able to look at how many people had moved out of poverty between 2016 and now. Well, of course, we understand the fact that because of the COVID-19 challenges, starting effectively 2020, a number of people are likely to have been moved, to have been pushed into that, under the poverty line, as it were. But again, we should also, I gave some statistics in referring to December 2020, that because of the application of some of these policies, about 1 million jobs were saved, and about 1.1 million jobs were created. Now, those jobs that were saved those jobs that were created would have actually impacted a number of some poor people, that are likely to have been, in the register, and we should have a mechanism to determine and define those that had been impacted and had moved off, the line, as it were. So there should be an active engagement with the register, because the truth of the matter is now that it's even now being democratized and moved to the sub-national level. It is more important to start looking and monitoring that it's not politically tainted. I can say, you know, to a large extent that the implication, I mean, the implementation at the federal level had been to a large extent, and I'm not saying 100% here, had been to a large extent politically blind. But again, I may not be able to vouch at the state level where other characters may have intentions, you know. So one will need a lot of monitoring in that regard. But most importantly, the register must be seen as a transitional register, you know, so that we can at every point in time have a reference of how many people, because of the implementations of these programs, had moved out, and of course because of certain, you know, challenges, had also moved in, and there's a need to also continue to upgrade that register. The register is not supposed to be permanent. There's a need to continue to register because some people were not registered in the first instance, and they are likely to still, you know, be in that population of poor, and there's a need to also cover them, even if we are not touching them as of this time, but they should officially be in that register.
Okay, Ms. Nanias, I'm still going to lean on Kingsley's question. You know, with the other interventions, there have been stories going around that it's like people reach out to family and friends, and the names that are constantly there, and, you know, they never change. And how, I asked the national coordinator, how would the monitoring mechanism be? How can these businesses be traced to ensure and assure these people that you are getting the ground based on the fact that you need it and not because you want it?
I think what Mr. Nee has mentioned is very, very correct. The social register is a living document. It's dynamic, and it is in and out. And the process for enlisting of registering people into the social register is open and transparent. One responsibility that government owes to people is to make its processes open, so anybody can know what is the content of the social register. And just as you have mentioned, it is a reference document, and interventions mine from there. For example, under NGKS, as I mentioned, the support for, the social transfer, we mine from there. And we're talking about chronically ill people, aged people, vulnerable people, urban poor. So see, for the urban poor, it is very, very possible that within a short space of time, they will migrate. And for this intervention we have, it is consistent for a period of 2 years. And we are very sure that within a period of 2 years, those who have benefited would have migrated. And what is it? Minimum of 5,000 naira grant is paid to a beneficiary, depending on what the state has chosen. Some pay 10,000 naira per month over a period of 24 months. There's capacity building, livelihood training that will also be organized. And the local government system is structured to monitor, supervise, and ensure that those who are now qualified to move out of the register are exited from the register. There's exit policy. There's exit plan across all the resort areas under NGK. So it is transparency. The information is out there, and the public is invited to go in there and confirm. You cannot get these resources without without meeting the criteria for benefiting from the social register. So this is what I can say at this stage. I could also add, in terms of this targeting, under the CSDA, the Community and Social Development Agencies in the state, which has also intervened in 29 states plus FCT, what was used is poverty map, okay? And this poverty map is generated by the state government, okay? And it is approved by the state government, and that is where they are focused. They are looking at local government that are less endowed, underserved in terms of social amenities, okay? And they are provided. So over time, we see that if these amenities are provided, they cannot continue to be backward local government over time if this focus is sustained. And under NGKS, the program has, some states have also indicated that they want to continue to use the poverty map. We state that this local government cannot benefit because they are affluent. But these local governments are poor because on the average, I mean, there are very, very few primary schools, no access to portable drinking water and what have you. So this is it, and statistics are being taken. So eventually, some of so-called poor local government today will graduate from that state of poverty. Just as my chairman has mentioned, they will kick poverty out of Nigeria by providing social amenities and natural resources services to these poor people in this local government. So this is the way it is structured.
Okay, Dr. Obadje, thank you so much. We know we're taking a break now, but when we return, we'll be talking about the application procedure and how, people can benefit from the NG Cares. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Since coming into office in 2015, the Buhari administration has recorded unprecedented achievements in all sectors, especially in the provision of infrastructure, which is the key to economic growth. Never in the history of this country has any other administration done so much with so little. Recall that when this administration came into the office, the price of crude oil, which provides for 80% of Nigeria's budgetary revenues and 95% of foreign exchange earning, dropped drastically, thus reducing the amount of resources available to the federal government. In spite of this, the administration has continued apace with massive infrastructure developments.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
All right, here, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We have all our four guests here with us discussing NG Cares, which is the new stimulus package for states and ultimately for Nigerians. Let's bring in again Aso Vakuraye. My colleague Jumaya was indicating that we need to get more information about the application process for the would-be beneficiaries of NG Cares once you get it launched in the various states. So give us a walkthrough all of this process? Say in the FCT, if Kingsley wants to apply, for instance, for those amongst the most vulnerable, how does Kingsley apply?
I didn't say anything.
How does Kingsley apply? You know.
Yes. So the program is so structured that it will reach out to whosoever wants to participate. And we are calling that all and sundry, you know, to find a way out, you know. At the federal, like you've known, we have the Federal Care Steering Committee, we have the Federal Care Technical Committee, and then we have the Federal Care Support Unit. Then at the state, we have the State Care Steering Committee. That is made up of commissioners, commissioners of relevant MDAs that have something to do with what we are talking about, agric, livelihood, and all this. They are there. Then, of course, we have a coordinating group. We call it the State Cares Coordinating Unit. Then we have the delivery platforms. This delivery platform takes care of all the relevant things that the state have signed to. That's one unique thing about this program. Every state needed to sign to a particular area to say this area we want to participate.
Such as?
You know, for example, some states signed up to say all we will do is Fadama, agric. That's our area of strength. No, but others decided to take up on some this direct job labor and all those things. You know, they decided to take up on those ones. So whichever area, the delivery unit working with the relevant MDAs, because of shortness of time, we didn't in structuring, we didn't tamper with some of those things. So MDA, for example, like the Ministry of Youth in a particular state, whatever activity they were doing, all they need to do is to now align it to the state care. Then from there, their customer, let me use that word, their customers, you know, who were now negatively impacted can easily reach out to them. So that is the linkage. So for example, if me too, as I domicile in FCT, if I want to reach out to them, I go to, for example, the FCT Fadama, and they'll link me to NG case or FCT case, you know, and the process starts like that. Not laborious, no dragging. We did it in such a manner that is so quick because of it's an emergency program. It had to run quick, you know, don't delay who is dying. If not, you will die before
get the money.
before you get the money or get the support.
Okay, Aisha, let's get your views.
Okay, so I'll speak specifically to the MSME components. For the MSME components, we've tried to make the application process as easy and as convenient as possible. So each beneficiary, each intending beneficiary has 3 options depending on the states. The first option is what we call field agents that will go out to their location of business to go and get their details. Some of the states have chosen that route because of the type of applicants that they have. The second option we have is that the beneficiaries can pick up forms in the delivery units that the chairman has described. So if your MDA, for example, in Delta, it was their SMIDAN office that was responsible for the MSME, delivering the MSME component of NG Cares, you go to the SMIDAN office, pick up your forms, complete it, and submit it there. Then the third option for the more sophisticated businesses or those that are more urban-oriented is through a portal. So some of the states have portals where you can go and apply. All of that information is aggregated, of course, and verified from the through the relevant mechanisms before the beneficiaries are now approved to access or participate in the program.
Well, one of the issues that emerged in late 2020 after the EndSARS protest was the view expressed by a number of young persons when cabinet ministers went to have stakeholders meeting as directed by the president, that whereas there was a plenitude of intervention programs by the government, some of them didn't seem to know about this, or they were otherwise skeptical, if not cynical, about that. Last week on Good Morning Nigeria, we also discussed the broader program, that's the Economic Sustainability Plan, and the gains that have been made. But there remains that gap to say, look, how do you encourage, if not incentivize, the doubters to say, look, this thing is workable, go for it, it's available at X, Y, Z. How do you get to that stage instead of just saying, look, if you apply, you qualify. If you don't apply, it's your business.
You're right. I've worked on several of these intervention programs, and this particular issue you raised is one issue that comes up at the beginning of every single intervention program. Nigerians were doubters. We don't believe it until we see it. So what we've done for NG Cares is that we're a bit more deliberate in our engagement. So first of all, you have to show people that this thing actually works. And what do? You show them the actual beneficiaries. You get testimonials from people that have actually benefited from the program. It's not Aisha that is coming on NT and saying that, oh, I've disbursed in Delta. No. You are seeing Mama Risikat that has her restaurant on the road that has benefited, and she's telling you
that's
what she
Delta.
used to.
In Delta, it will be Mama Ejiro.
Risikat is in Lagos.
But still,
as an example,
skeptical about it.
I understand
they
that
won't
Nigerians
believe it.
Still be skeptical, but at least you have evidence to show that this has worked. And we're more deliberate in our engagements. There's a lot of community engagement. We're working through trade groups. We're working through artisans group. We're working through women's groups to ensure that there's an equitable distribution across all categories of people that we're targeting. You talked about Kingsley. Kingsley now knows that, oh, this intervention is available. Even in Delta, we had people complaining, and we had cost to go and engage them directly. I mentioned that we're working with field agents. That's also deliberate. Those field agents live in those communities. The community people know them. They will also help you in passing this message across and letting them know that, you know, this intervention actually works, and these are the people that have benefited, and this is why these people have benefited and you have not.
Okay, thank you. Let me join Nia Akinsuju. You've been listening to how application and procedure to participate and benefit from the NG Cares and how stakeholders are keen into it. Let's talk about the civil society. And they are also linked to the commonest of men on the street or at home, those who, you know, really need this grant. What will be the role of the civil society in this case?
The role of the civil society is more or less cut out to monitor and, of course, evaluate the impact of the implementation of the program. I think more than anything else, we need the third-party monitoring capacity of the civil society at this point in time. Now, I know by the structure put on ground by the responsible MDAs, as it were, it would be as if those are very suitable, adaptable structures. But again, I try as much as possible for us to move away from a public interaction on policies where you have physical to physical. And I'm talking about where you need to go and collect forms. It has been, we know now, you know, historically in Nigeria, where you provide a desk opportunity for government implementers to interact with the public, that there is a possibility of tainting, you know, that process. So at that level, we need a lot of monitoring, and we need a lot of breathing down, you know, by the CSOs, especially in those states that are adapted that kind of application process. Again, we should also evaluate even the capacity and the character of the CSOs that will be appointed, you know, to do this kind of work. Because again, we are given to being familiar, you know, with the kind of people we deploy, you know, to the field in Nigeria. So I think it's important we are objective in this matter. We are not only objective, we are patriotic in terms of the people either as field agents, as CSO, that will be responsible for monitoring this process. Because it's high time we all see this poverty situation as a major challenge for all of us. No matter how comfortable you are at whatever level, you have thousands of people under you, either in the family place, in the workplace, in the community and all that are very poor. And as long as you have poor people, they remain a burden on the economy, and until we all, patriotically contribute our own bit, especially to these processes and make it transparent and make it workable, that is how we impact these people. And the more we move people out of poverty, it adds to the larger economic activities and, of course, eventually to our GDP numbers.
Kinsiju, thank you so much. And just to announce that our Twitter handle at NTAGMN is back. So we'll be expecting your contributions as we discuss issues on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's take some number of tweets that came in this morning. We have Usman Banukantu. He says, programs like NG Cares are conceived with good intentions, but its implementation is jeopardized by political interest, despite clear goal and result areas well spelled out. Therefore, state governments should allow the agencies concerned to implement the program religiously as designed. And Ngo Jinge tweets, good morning. The coordinator should create a website for this program.
Is there a website for the program?
Yes, there is.
All right, what is the address?
The website for NGCase is www.ngcasenigeria.gov.ng.
Take it again.
www.ngcares, written as one word, ngcasenigeria.gov.ng.
All right, ngcaresnigeria.gov.ng. All right, thank you very much for that information. I'll just, just before we wrap up, I know that this is likely a subject matter for a more elaborate conversation. Sometimes when you look at the type and if you like, character of MSMEs usually being targeted by a number of interventions, you just ask yourself whether these are the kind of MSMEs that can actually catalyze economic growth. If I'm not,